The prison lights flickered once, then twice, and then every light in cell block C went dark. For 3 long seconds, nobody could see anything. Not the guards. Not the inmates. Not even the cameras. When the backup power came back on, alarms started screaming through the prison. Guard Daniel Harris ran down the cold concrete hallway with 3 other officers behind him. "Cell 217, someone shouted. "He's gone." The officers rushed to the cell. The metal door was locked. The security seal was untouched. Everything looked normal. But the inmate inside was missing. Or at least that was what everyone thought. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and pointed it through the bars. The bunk bed was empty. The toilet sat in the corner. The small desk had nothing on it. No inmate. No movement. Nothing. "Open it!" Daniel yelled. The heavy door slid open with a loud metal clank. The guards entered carefully. Every corner was checked. Nothing. The cell was empty. Yet something felt wrong. Daniel couldn't explain it. The room felt occupied, as if someone was standing right beside him, watching, waiting. Then a strange sound came from behind the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Everyone froze. The sound came again. Slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere inside the cell. Daniel turned toward the concrete wall. The tapping stopped. Silence filled the room. No one moved. No one spoke. Then a voice suddenly whispered from somewhere inside the cell. "You should have looked closer." The guards spun around in shock. But there was still nobody there. And that was the moment they realized the cell they thought was empty might not be empty at all. What they discovered next would leave the entire prison in complete disbelief. But to understand how any of this happened, we need to go back 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks before the alarms. 3 weeks before the whispers. 3 weeks before guards thought a cell was empty when it wasn't. At Blackstone State Prison, life followed the same routine every day. Doors opened. Doors closed. Inmates ate. Guards watched. Nothing exciting ever happened. Or at least that was what most people believed. One inmate spent most of his time alone. His name was Ethan Brooks. He was 32 years old. Quiet. Polite. Never caused trouble. Most guards liked him because he followed rules. Most inmates ignored him because he kept to himself. Ethan spent hours reading books from the prison library. History books. Engineering books. Books about buildings and old prisons. People thought he was simply trying to pass the time. Nobody knew he was studying something much bigger. Every afternoon, Ethan sat at the same table during recreation time. Every evening, he returned to cell 217. Every night, he stared at the same section of wall beside his bunk. 4 months, he followed the exact same routine. So exact that guards stopped paying attention. Humans notice things that change. They stop noticing things that stay the same. And Ethan understood that better than anyone. One morning, a new guard named Tyler Reed began working in cell block C. Tyler was younger than most officers. Unlike the others, he paid attention. On his second day, he noticed Ethan looking at the wall again. For nearly 10 minutes. Without moving. Without blinking. It seemed strange. Later that afternoon, Tyler walked past cell 217 and glanced inside. Ethan was reading a book. Nothing unusual. But Tyler noticed something on the floor. A tiny scratch. It looked fresh. The next day, another scratch appeared. Then another. Small marks. Almost invisible. But they seemed to form a line near the wall Ethan always stared at. Tyler mentioned it to another officer. The older guard laughed. "Brooks. He's harmless." "Maybe," Tyler said. "But something feels off." The older guard shrugged. "You're new. You'll learn. Not every mystery is a mystery." Tyler tried to forget about it. But he couldn't. Because later that night, during a routine count, he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. Ethan was standing in his cell, looking directly at him. Smiling. Not a friendly smile. Not an angry smile. A smile that seemed to say he knew something nobody else knew. And when Tyler looked down, he saw a folded piece of paper lying just outside the bars. A paper that had not been there seconds earlier. His heart began to pound. Slowly, he picked it up. Only 4 words were written on it. "You're finally paying attention." Before Tyler could react, a loud crash suddenly echoed from deep inside the prison, followed by terrified shouting from another cell block. The loud crash echoed through Blackstone State Prison. For a moment, nobody moved. Then alarms began blaring through the hallways. Guard Tyler Reed stuffed the folded note into his pocket and ran toward the noise with the other officers. The shouting was coming from Cell Block D. Inmates crowded against their bars, yelling and pointing toward the far end of the corridor. A maintenance cart lay on its side. Tools were scattered across the floor. A large metal pipe had fallen from the ceiling and crashed into the walkway below. Fortunately, nobody had been standing there when it fell. Still, the accident shocked everyone. Prison staff quickly cleared the area and called maintenance workers to inspect the damage. As officers worked, Tyler kept thinking about the note. "You're finally paying attention." Those 4 words would not leave his mind. Who had placed the paper outside the cell? He had looked away for only a second. There was no way Ethan could have slipped it through the bars without being noticed. Yet somehow it had happened. The next morning, Tyler arrived early for his shift. The prison felt different. The old building groaned and creaked as usual, but now he noticed things he had ignored before. Loose bolts, small cracks, odd scratches. The prison was old, and age showed itself everywhere. During breakfast, Tyler watched Ethan carefully. The inmate sat alone at his table. He ate slowly, calmly, like nothing unusual had happened. Several inmates argued nearby, but Ethan never looked up. When breakfast ended, Tyler walked toward him. "Ethan." The inmate looked up. "Morning, Officer Reed." His voice was calm, almost cheerful. Tyler crossed his arms. "You leave that note for me?" Ethan tilted his head. "What note?" "The one outside your cell." For a second, Ethan's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled. "I don't know what you're talking about." Tyler stared at him. Ethan stared back. Neither spoke. Finally, another guard called Tyler away. The conversation ended. But Tyler knew one thing. Ethan was hiding something. The question was what? Over the next few days, Tyler paid closer attention. The more he watched Ethan, the stranger things became. Every afternoon, Ethan borrowed books from the library. Not novels. Not magazines. Books about prison architecture, construction, ventilation systems, electrical systems, old building designs. When Tyler checked the library records, he discovered Ethan had borrowed dozens of similar books over the past year. That seemed unusual. Very unusual. One evening, Tyler approached the prison librarian. "Has Ethan Brooks ever asked strange questions?" The librarian thought for a moment. "Actually, yes." "What kind of questions?" "He asks about old blueprints." Tyler frowned. "Blueprints?" The librarian nodded. "He likes learning how buildings were designed." A chill ran through Tyler's body. That night, he could not stop thinking about it. The next morning, he requested permission to inspect Cell 217. His supervisor approved it. 2 officers accompanied him. When Ethan left for recreation time, they entered the cell. At first glance, everything looked normal. Bed, desk, sink, toilet. Nothing suspicious. Tyler searched carefully. He checked beneath the mattress. Inside books. Under the desk. Nothing. Then he noticed the wall beside the bunk. The same wall Ethan always stared at. Tyler knelt down. The concrete looked ordinary. But when he tapped it, the sound seemed different. Not solid. Hollow. Very faintly hollow. His pulse quickened. He tapped again. The same sound. One officer laughed. "It's just old concrete." Maybe. But Tyler wasn't convinced. He examined the surface closely. There, hidden near the floor, was a tiny crack. So small most people would never notice it. Yet it stretched several inches across the wall. Tyler photographed it. Then he ordered maintenance workers to inspect the area. The workers arrived later that day. They spent nearly an hour examining the wall. When they finished, their report surprised him. The wall appeared completely safe. No hidden space. No structural problems. Nothing unusual. Tyler should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt more worried, because he knew what he had heard. The wall sounded hollow. That night, he walked past cell 217 during evening count. Ethan sat on his bunk reading. Everything seemed normal. Then Tyler noticed something. The book in Ethan's hands was upside down. Ethan wasn't reading at all. He was watching. Watching Tyler. Waiting. Slowly, Ethan lowered the book. Their eyes met. Then Ethan spoke quietly. So they checked the wall. Tyler froze. Nobody had told Ethan about the inspection. Not a single person. Yet somehow he knew. "How do you know that?" Tyler asked. Ethan's smile returned. The same strange smile. "The prison tells me things." Before Tyler could ask another question, Ethan leaned closer to the bars. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You should stop looking at cell 217. "Why?" For the first time, Ethan's smile disappeared. His expression became serious, almost concerned. "Because if you find what's hidden here," he said, "you won't be the only one looking for it." Tyler felt a knot form in his stomach. What does that mean? But Ethan stepped back. The conversation was over. He returned to his bunk and opened his book. This time it was right side up. Tyler walked away, more confused than ever. The following evening, a violent thunderstorm rolled across the area. Rain hammered the prison roof. Wind rattled windows. Lightning flashed across the dark sky. Near midnight, an emergency call came over the radio. A power failure had struck part of cell block C. Officers rushed toward the scene. As Tyler ran down the hallway, lightning illuminated the corridor through narrow windows. For one brief second, he looked toward cell 217. And what he saw made him stop cold. The wall beside Ethan's bunk was open. Not cracked. Not damaged. Open. A dark gap appeared where solid concrete should have been. And standing inside that darkness was a second person. A person who should not have been inside the prison at all. Then the lights went out completely. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed cell block C. For a few terrifying seconds, Tyler Reed could see nothing. Only the sound of pounding rain and distant alarms filled the prison. His heart raced. Had he really seen someone standing inside cell 217? Or had the lightning played a trick on his eyes? Then the emergency lights flickered on. A dim red glow spread through the hallway. Tyler immediately looked toward cell 217. The wall was closed. Completely closed. Solid concrete. No opening. No gap. No second person. Just Ethan Brooks sitting calmly on his bunk. Reading. As if nothing had happened. Tyler hurried toward the cell. "Open this door," he shouted. Another officer unlocked it. The heavy metal door swung open. Tyler rushed inside. He checked every corner. Every inch of the wall. Nothing. No opening. No hidden space. No visitor. The wall looked exactly as it always had. One of the officers frowned. "What are we looking for?" Tyler hesitated. How could he explain what he had seen? "I thought I saw someone." The officers exchanged confused looks. "There isn't anyone here." Tyler knew that. Yet he also knew what he had seen during the lightning flash. A second person had been standing there. He was sure of it. Ethan slowly closed his book. "You look nervous, Officer Reed." Tyler stared at him. "Who was in this cell?" "No one. I saw someone." Ethan shrugged. "Then maybe you saw a shadow." Tyler clenched his jaw. The inmate seemed almost amused. That bothered him more than anything. The prison power returned an hour later. Most officers went back to their normal duties. But Tyler could not let it go. The next morning, he filed a report. His supervisor listened patiently. When Tyler finished, the older man leaned back in his chair. So let me understand this. Tyler nodded. You think there is a secret space inside a prison cell? Yes. And you think a second person was hiding there? Yes. The supervisor sighed. You have no evidence. Tyler hated hearing those words because they were true. No evidence. Only suspicions. Only strange events. Only a feeling that something was wrong. Still, he refused to quit. For the next week, he spent every spare moment studying old prison records. The deeper he looked, the stranger things became. Blackstone State Prison was nearly 80 years old. Over the decades, several parts of the building had been renovated. Walls had been added. Hallways had been moved. Storage rooms had been sealed. Some sections no longer appeared on modern maps. That discovery immediately caught his attention. One evening, he sat alone in the records room comparing old blueprints with new ones. Most of the layouts matched. But one section didn't. Cell Block C. Specifically, the area around Cell 217. Tyler leaned closer. According to a blueprint from 50 years ago, a narrow maintenance corridor once existed behind several cells, including Ethan's. The corridor had supposedly been sealed decades earlier. Yet something about the drawings bothered him. The measurements didn't match. The modern wall seemed thicker than it should have been. Much thicker. His pulse quickened. Maybe the corridor had never been completely sealed. Maybe part of it still existed. The next day, Tyler secretly returned to the cell block after his shift. Most officers had gone home. The hallway was quiet. He stopped near Cell 217. Ethan was lying on his bunk. His eyes were closed. At least that was what it looked like. Tyler waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Then he heard it. A faint sound. Scrape. 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 Coming from somewhere behind the wall. Tyler froze. The sound stopped. Then came again. Scrape. Scrape. Like someone moving through a tight space. His heart pounded. He quietly pressed his ear against the concrete. The noise became clearer. Someone was definitely behind that wall. Someone moving carefully through darkness. Suddenly, Ethan opened his eyes. Their gazes met. Neither spoke. For several seconds, the prison seemed completely silent. Then Ethan sat up slowly. "You should leave, Officer Reed." Tyler stepped away from the wall. "Who's back there?" Ethan didn't answer. "Tell me." Still no answer. Instead, Ethan stood and walked toward the bars. His face looked different now. Not confident. Not amused. Worried. Genuinely worried. "You're getting close," Ethan said quietly. "Close to what?" Ethan looked down the empty hallway before speaking. Some secret stay buried for a reason. Tyler frowned. "What secret?" Before Ethan could respond, another officer appeared around the corner. The moment he arrived, Ethan fell silent. The conversation ended. Again. That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. His thoughts kept returning to the hidden corridor. The strange sounds. The mysterious second person. The sealed section behind Cell 217. By morning, he had made a decision. He needed proof. Real proof. Late that evening, after most of the prison had settled down, Tyler obtained a small inspection camera from maintenance. The device was attached to a flexible cable designed for looking inside walls. If a hidden space existed, this camera could reveal it. Shortly before midnight, he returned to Cell Block C. The corridor was quiet. Most inmates were asleep. Carefully, Tyler located the tiny crack near the floor of Cell 217. He inserted the camera cable. Slowly, carefully, the cable slid farther than it should have. Much farther. His heart raced. There was definitely empty space behind the wall. He turned on the camera screen. At first, he saw only darkness. Dust. Concrete. Then the camera shifted slightly. And Tyler nearly dropped it. A narrow passage stretched behind the wall. Someone had been using it recently. There were fresh footprints in the dust. A flashlight. Food wrappers. And something else. Something far more disturbing. At the end of the hidden corridor stood a metal door. A door that did not appear on any prison blueprint. And painted across that door in large red letters were 3 chilling words. "Do not open." Just then, the camera screen suddenly went black. And from somewhere deep behind the wall, Tyler heard a loud metallic bang followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps rushing straight toward him. The footsteps were coming fast. Too fast. Tyler Reed jerked backward and nearly dropped the inspection camera. His heart slammed against his chest. The sounds echoed through the hidden space behind the wall. Someone was running directly toward him. Scrape. Thump. Scrape. Thump. The noise grew louder every second. Tyler pulled the camera cable out as quickly as he could. The moment the cable cleared the crack, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Complete silence. Tyler stood frozen in the empty hallway. Nobody appeared. No voice spoke. Nothing moved. Yet he knew someone had been inside that hidden corridor. Someone who now knew he had discovered it. The next morning, Tyler reported everything to the prison warden, Michael Grant. The warden listened carefully. Unlike Tyler's supervisor, he did not laugh. He did not dismiss the story. Instead, he studied the old blueprints for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, he looked up. "You may be right." Tyler felt a surge of relief. "There is a hidden space." "Possibly." The warden pointed at the plans. "This prison has undergone dozens of renovations over the years. Some records are incomplete." "What about the door?" The warden frowned. "That concerns me." By noon, a small inspection team had been assembled. Maintenance workers, security officers, engineers. Together they would examine cell 217. For the first time, Tyler felt close to getting answers. But Ethan Brooks seemed strangely calm, almost as if he expected everything that was happening. When officers escorted him from the cell, he glanced at Tyler. "You're opening a door that has stayed closed for a very long time." Tyler folded his arms. "Then maybe it's time someone opened it." For a moment, Ethan looked disappointed. Not angry. Disappointed. As if Tyler had failed a test. The inspection began shortly afterward. Workers used scanning equipment on the wall. Within minutes, the results confirmed Tyler's suspicions. A large empty space existed behind the concrete. Several officers exchanged shocked looks. The hidden corridor was real. Workers carefully removed part of the wall. Chunks of concrete crashed onto the floor. Dust filled the air. Then a narrow opening appeared. Everyone stared. Beyond it lay a dark passage stretching into the shadows. The corridor was real. Just like Tyler had believed. The warden ordered flashlights distributed. Then the team entered. The air inside felt cold and stale. Dust covered most surfaces. Old pipes lined the ceiling. The corridor extended farther than anyone expected. As they walked deeper inside, Tyler noticed footprints. Fresh footprints. Dozens of them. Someone had been moving through this passage recently. And often. The discovery made everyone uneasy. A hidden corridor was one thing. A hidden corridor being actively used was something else entirely. The group continued forward. After several minutes, they reached the metal door Tyler had seen on the camera. It stood exactly where the footage showed it. The red warning remained painted across the front. "Do not open." One maintenance worker swallowed nervously. "Who wrote that?" Nobody answered. The warden examined the door. "There are no records of this room." Tyler shined his flashlight along the edges. The metal looked old. Very old. Yet the hinges appeared recently maintained. Someone had been taking care of it. That realization sent another chill through the group. The warden finally nodded. "Open it." 2 officers stepped forward. The lock had long since rusted away. With a loud groan, the heavy door slowly swung inward. Everyone raised their flashlights. The room beyond looked nothing like they expected. It wasn't a secret escape tunnel. It wasn't a hidden prison cell. It was an abandoned records room. Rows of shelves filled the space. Thousands of dusty files sat untouched. Boxes covered every wall. The room looked frozen in time. The team entered carefully. Tyler picked up a folder from a nearby shelf. His eyes widened. The documents were prison records. Old records. Very old records. Some dated back more than 50 years. The warden looked equally surprised. These files were reported missing decades ago. Missing? Tyler asked. The warden nodded. There was a flood in the archives. Everyone believed these records were destroyed. But they had not been destroyed. Someone had hidden them. 4 decades. The team spent hours examining the room. The records contained forgotten inmate files, construction plans, maintenance reports, and incident logs. Most were ordinary. But then Tyler found something unusual. A thin folder hidden inside a metal cabinet. Unlike the others, it was clean. Recently handled. He opened it carefully. Inside were photographs. Recent photographs. Photos of Cell 217. Photos of prison hallways. Photos of guards. Including Tyler himself. His stomach tightened. Someone had been secretly watching the prison. Watching everyone. The folder contained dozens of notes. Schedules. Observations. Security details. The information was alarmingly current. Whoever used this room had access to the prison's daily operations. Then Tyler discovered the final page. His blood ran cold. At the top was a handwritten list. Several names had been crossed out. Each name belonged to a former prison employee. At the very bottom was a single uncrossed name. Tyler Reed. Before Tyler could speak, a loud crash echoed from the corridor outside. Everyone spun around. The door slammed shut. The room plunged into darkness. Then came the sound of metal grinding against metal. Someone had locked them inside. And from somewhere beyond the door, a calm voice echoed through the hidden corridor. The voice belonged to Ethan Brooks. "You were never supposed to find this room." Ethan Brooks' voice echoed through the darkness outside the locked door. For a moment, nobody spoke. The prison staff stood frozen. Only the sound of nervous breathing filled the hidden room. Tyler Reed grabbed the door handle and pulled. It would not move. The heavy metal door had been locked from the outside. "Warden!" one officer shouted. "We're trapped." The warden immediately ordered everyone to stay calm. "Check the room," he said. "There has to be another exit." Flashlights swept across the dusty walls. The group searched quickly. Shelves, cabinets, boxes, old filing systems. Then one maintenance worker called out, "Over here!" Everyone rushed over. Behind a row of shelves was a narrow service passage. The passage connected to an old maintenance stairway that led upward. The route was dusty and difficult to see, but it was usable. Within minutes, the team escaped the hidden room and returned to the main prison. The moment they emerged, officers moved toward Cell 217. But when they opened the door, Ethan was sitting calmly on his bunk, reading a book. Exactly as he always was. It looked as if he had never left. The warden stared at him. "Ethan Brooks." Ethan slowly closed his book. "Yes, warden. How did you know about the hidden room?" Ethan looked down for a moment. Then he sighed. The confident smile he always wore was gone. For the first time, he looked tired. Very tired. "I guess it's time you knew the truth." The prison staff listened carefully. Years earlier, before Ethan had arrived at Blackstone State Prison, an elderly inmate named Walter Hayes had occupied Cell 217. Walter worked in prison maintenance. During repairs, he accidentally discovered the hidden corridor. Over time, he found the secret records room. Inside were thousands of files that had been hidden during a flood decades ago. Many of the records contained evidence of old mistakes, missing reports, and administrative failures. Nothing violent. Nothing dangerous. But enough to embarrass many former prison officials. Rather than report the room, Walter secretly protected it. When Walter became old and sick, he shared the secret with Ethan. At first, Ethan did nothing. But over the years, he began studying the records. The files fascinated him. He spent countless nights reading old reports and forgotten stories. Eventually, He became obsessed with protecting the hidden archive. Not because he wanted power, not because he wanted money, but because he believed the records represented the prison's true history. A history that would disappear if nobody preserved it. Tyler listened carefully. Then why the notes? Ethan nodded. Because I knew someone would eventually discover the corridor. The photographs? I wanted to know who I could trust. The warden frowned. And the crossed-out names? Ethan looked embarrassed. Those were people who investigated and then lost interest. I crossed them out after they stopped searching. Tyler blinked. So nobody was being targeted? No. The room became quiet. Everyone had imagined something much darker. Something criminal. Something dangerous. Instead, they had uncovered a decades-old secret hidden inside an aging prison. The warden folded his arms. You should have reported this. I know. And you should never have accessed restricted areas. I know. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then the warden nodded. At least now we know the truth. Over the following weeks, experts carefully catalogued the hidden records. Historians reviewed the files. Prison administrators examined the forgotten documents. Many valuable records were recovered and preserved. The hidden corridor was officially documented. The secret room was added to the prison's maps. For the first time in decades, nothing remained hidden. As for Ethan Brooks, he faced disciplinary action for accessing unauthorized areas of the prison. But investigators found no evidence that he had harmed anyone, planned an escape, or committed any violent act. His role in the mystery turned out to be far different from what everyone had feared. One evening, several weeks later, Tyler stopped outside cell 217. The prison felt normal again. Quiet. Predictable. Safe. Ethan looked up from his book. Everything finally makes sense now, doesn't it? Tyler smiled slightly. Most of it. Most. Tyler nodded. There is still one thing I don't understand. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What's that? Tyler looked around the cell. The bunk. The desk. The wall. The same wall that had started the entire mystery. Then he asked the question that had bothered him from the beginning. How did you make everyone think the cell was empty that night? A small grin appeared on Ethan's face. For the first time in weeks, he looked amused. He pointed toward the wall. After investigators opened the corridor, they discovered a narrow observation space hidden behind a removable concrete panel. The opening had been cleverly disguised decades earlier by maintenance workers. During the power outage, Ethan had slipped into the hidden space for only a few moments. When guards looked through the bars, the cell appeared completely empty. By the time they entered the room, he had quietly returned through the concealed opening. The entire prison had been fooled. Guards thought his cell was empty. They were wrong. Tyler laughed softly. So that's how you did it? Ethan nodded. That's how. As Tyler walked away, he glanced back one last time. The mystery that had consumed the prison was finally over. The hidden corridor had been revealed. The secret records had been preserved. The truth had been uncovered. And Cell 217 would forever be remembered as the place where an entire prison learned that sometimes the biggest secrets are hidden in plain sight.